guys, welcome to my channel. Today I will show you how to make this beautiful dress. And before we start with the tutorial, I will show you some of the products that I used for this project. The sewing pattern for this dress is available at my Etsy shop. You have the link in the description box. And the rest of these products are from AliExpress. So the first product is the chiffon fabric, and I used it as the main fabric for the dress. The second fabric is mesh, and I used it as lining for my bustier. And this double-sided adhesive fabric, I used it as glue to glue together the main fabric with the lining. And this is the foam that I used for the cups. I always use this foam for all of my bustiers. And if you also will make your own bias tape, you need bias tape makers. So you need two of them. You need the 9mm and 18mm bias tape maker. And since I get a lot of questions about the boning, I also added the link in the description box. And here you can see the list of the parts that need to be prepared. And what do I mean by prepared is you either interface it or glue those parts together with lining fabric. And of course, if you're using fabrics that are thicker than the fabric that I used, then you can skip this step. And now let's start with the tutorial. Right here, I folded the fabric at 75 centimeters. And then I folded it again in the middle. So you should have 4 pieces. So place the paper pattern, pin it on, and then cut it out. This way you will get a circle. And now take the paper pattern and cut it on the marks on the paper pattern. And now fold the fabric again, but at 70 centimeters. And then fold it in half, place the paper pattern on, and cut it out. And you should get another circle, and this circle is a little bit shorter than the other one. And then you have to cut that circle open, so make a straight cut all the way up. And here I'm freehanding the ruffle trims, but you have pattern pieces for that, so cut them out. And then pin together those trims. Please keep in mind that there is 6 for the short skirt and 6 for the long skirt. So you have to serge them together and then go to the sewing machine, fold one edge of the ruffle trim in, and then make a straight stitch all the way around at 1 to 2 millimeters from that edge. This is called the Moscow seam. And now cut down the seam allowance and do that as close as you can to that stitch. This process takes a little bit of time. And then after you've cut out all of the seam allowance, you need to go back to the sewing machine and then fold that edge once again around 2-3 millimeters from the edge, and then make a straight stitch at 1 millimeter from the edge. This is how it should look like. So now you have to make a straight stitch all the way around that ruffle trim. and keep in mind to leave a little bit of thread because you will pull on it later. So right here I'm taking one of the threads and starting to pull. And please be careful when you do this because you can't break the thread. And right here I'm measuring. You have those measures in the instructions. These are different measurements for different sizes. So please check the instructions how long the trim should be. And now take one of the skirts. For example, I have the long skirt here, and I'm pinning together the bottom of the skirt with the ruffle trim and then serge them together. And after you've serged those together, put that seam towards the skirt and then understitch at 1 to 2 millimeters from the seam. And this is the result that you should get. And after you've done that both for the long and the short skirt, pin those skirts together at the waistline and then sew them together with a straight stitch all the way around. And now take one of the threads and pull on it. You will get ruffle at the waistline also. And now you have to measure that waistline. All of those measurements you also have in the instruction. And we're done with the skirt for the moment. So right here I'm preparing the fabric for the bustier. So here we have the main fabric, and then we have the double adhesive fabric and the white lining. So I'm putting those over each other and then press them together. And I'm repeating the same process but with nude mesh fabric also, because I used the white lining for the bias tape, the cups and eyelet panel, and I used mesh fabric for the bustier parts. So right here I'm tracing the bustier parts on the fabric and then cutting those details out. And then you have to pin together all of the bustier pieces, and please keep in mind that you need to put the seam allowance to the right side of the garment. So sew those pieces together. Just a straight stitch all the way down, and now put the seam allowance to one side and understitch at 2 millimeters from the seam. and cut down the seam allowance. Go as near as you can to the seam. And this is how it should look like. So right here I'm creating the bias tapes. So take the bias tape trim, put it inside the bias tape maker, and then press it. And right here I have the 18th millimeter bias tape. I'm folding that bias tape in half and then pressing it. So take that 9 millimeter bias tape, place it over that seam allowance, and then stitch the bias tape onto the bustier, and stitch at 1 millimeter from the edge of the bias tape on both sides. You should also make a straight stitch at the eyelet panel around 6 to 7 millimeters from the edge, because we're going to put some boning inside of that channel also. And now it's time to put that bustier inside of the 18th millimeter bias tape. So cut the edge of the bias tape and do this only for the sides where the bias tape meets with the eyelet panel. So fold those edges inside the bias tape and then put the bustier inside, and you can hand stitch that edge because it will make it easier for you to machine stitch that bias tape on. So while sewing, put the bustier inside and then stitch at 1 millimeter from the edge of the bias tape. So this is how it should look like when done. And put that bias tape on both sides and the middle of the bustier. And I'm not giving you any instructions for the eyelets because those can be different, so please check the instructions for the eyelets of your choosing. So just install those. I usually have 4 or 5 on each side. So now it's time to begin with the cups. So I pin together the side of the cup and the center cup, and then sew them together with a straight stitch. Now put that seam allowance to one side and then understitch at 2 millimeters from the seam. Now cut down that seam allowance as close as you can to the stitch. And now it's time to pin together the cup details with the upper cup. So sew those details together with a straight stitch and then repeat the step with the understitching at 2 millimeters from the seam and then cut down the seam allowance. And now cut down the paper pattern for the cups. Cut down the seam allowance. Leave the seam allowance only on the sides of those cups details. Place those details at the foam and then trace and cut those details out. And now sew together the center and the side cups with a zigzag stitch. And then sew together those details with the upper cup. And this step is optional. If you want to hide that zigzag stitch, you can place some band over it and sew it on. And now it's time to sew together the cup with the foam cup. So place face towards face and then pin them together. And now sew them together at 5 millimeters from the edge. Now take the seam allowance and turn it towards the foam cup and then understitch at 1 millimeter from the edge. Cut down that seam allowance as close as you can to that stitch. And now it's time to press that cuff for a cleaner look. Pin together the cup and the foam cup at the bottom and then sew them together at 2 millimeters from the edge. And now it's time to sew together the cups with the bustier. So take the cup and pin it together at the beginning and then the other side and then in the middle. And after you have pinned them on those points, you can pin the cup all the way around. And now sew them together with 1 centimeter seam allowance. So make that stitch at 1 centimeter from the edge. Take the underwire channel and put it over that stitch and then stitch at 1 millimeter from the edge, as you can see here, as close as you can. And now cut down the seam allowance as close as you can to that stitch. And now sew the other side of that underwire channel to the bustier and also make that stitch at 1 millimeter from the underwire channel's side. Put the underwire inside the channels.
And now close that channel with small stitches back and forth. And now cut down that underwire channel. So place the boning inside of the channels and then cut the boning 1.5 centimeters shorter than the boning channel is. And now it's time to start with the sleeve. So take the bottom of the sleeve and fold it in 1 centimeter, the same way as we did for the ruffle trims. And then cut down the seam allowance as close as you can to that seam, and then fold it in again and make a straight stitch at 1 to 2 millimeters from the edge. And for this step you can use the pattern or draw a straight line at 4 centimeters from the edge and then make a mark in the middle of the sleeve and then another mark from that middle to the side and also make a mark. So you need to have 3 marks on that line of the sleeve. And then you need to take the elastic band and also draw those lines. It's different length for every size, but you have that information in the instructions. So equal length marks, and it's good to know that it's good to leave some centimeters of the elastic band at the corners. So when you're gonna sew them together, the sleeve and the elastic band, that you can pull on those endings of the elastic band. You will soon understand what I mean when I will show you what I do on the sewing machine. So pin together the marks on the sleeve and the elastic band. And as you can see, the sleeve is longer than elastic band. So now you need to make a zigzag stitch, and to make it easier for you, you need to pull on that edge of the elastic band because the elastic band need to be straightened out. So while sewing, I'm pulling on the elastic band. And then a zigzag stitch all the way down. And this is how it should look like. So pin and sew together the side of the sleeve, the sides together. And now take a needle and put the thread inside of the seam at the bottom of the sleeve. And then you need to make the sleeve ruffle the same way as we did for the skirt ruffle, but you need to do the process also on the sides of the ruffle, as you can see here. And then make a straight stitch and then pull on that one of the threads. And the information about the length of this trim you have also in the instructions. And now you have to measure 6 centimeters from the seam on both sides. So you have to have 12 centimeters that you will not put together with the ruffle trim. So 6 centimeters on each side. And now you can pin the ruffle trim on. And remember, the starting and the ending points are on those marks that you just did. So no ruffle on those 12 centimeters. So serge together the ruffle and the sleeve, and also serge the side of the sleeve that there is no ruffle on. So all the way around that opening, the armpit, you need to make a serge. Then put that thread inside of the seam. And now you have to understitch. Put that seam towards the sleeve and then understitch at 5 millimeters from the edge. We will put in a 4 millimeter elastic band inside that channel. So please make sure to make that channel as wide as you can. This is how it should look like. If you have a loop, then put it all the way to the other side, or you can also use a safety pin to put that elastic band inside of that channel. So pull that elastic band out, and then you have to put it in so it's not visible, and then pin those ends, because we're going to make a straight stitch to fix that elastic band at those openings. And now you can secure that elastic band. Just make small stitches and go back and forth. And now fold that seam inside and then understitch at 2 to 3 centimeters from the edge. So take that sleeve and pin it together with the bustier. The starting point is at the start of the cup. Right here I chose to do that from the back, but I recommend you to start from where the cup ends. And pin that on and sew it on using a straight or a zigzag stitch. And I recommend you to try the bustier and see if you maybe need to stitch it more. If you want, you will have different looks depending on how far you will attach the sleeve. And now it's finally time to connect the skirt and the bustier. So make a mark at the center of the skirt. You can just fold that skirt in half. And then repeat the same at the bustier, at the center of the bustier. And then pin those two details together. And the starting point is that center. And now sew those details together at 5 millimeters from the edge. So before going to the next step, you need to serge the sides of the skirt. And now it's time to install the invisible zipper. So just pin it to one side and then the other side of the skirt. And then sew that zipper on using a zipper foot. So after you've sewn the zipper on, you have to pin together the rest of the sides. And then sew them together with 1 centimeter seam allowance. Now when you do this step, go above where the zipper ends. So you can see right here. And then I'm going all the way up. And then over where you see the stitch where we sew together the zipper and the skirt, I'm going above where that stitch ends, as you can see right here. Go above maybe 5 or 10 millimeters. And now press that seam open. And now it's finally time for the skirt lining. So fold that fabric in half and then place the paper pattern and cut it out. And then serge the sides of the skirt, as you can see here. And make another Moscow seam at the bottom of the skirt. So fold that edge in at 1 centimeter and then make a straight stitch all the way around at 1 to 2 millimeters from the edge. And then cut down the seam allowance, go back to the sewing machine, fold that edge in and stitch at 1 to 2 millimeters from the edge. And now press that seam. Open the dress and then pin together the lining skirt with the skirt. And as you can see, the bustier will be in the middle of those two skirts. So pin it from one side and then go to the other side and pin, and then work your way to the center. And after you're done pinning them together, go to the sewing machine and sew them together at 1 centimeter from the edge. So the seam allowance should be 1 centimeter. We will serge that edge later, but not for the moment. So after you've sewn together the skirts at the waistline, you need to sew together the lining with the zipper. So pin those together and then sew them together using a straight stitch. And now you have to connect those lining skirt sides. So pin them together and then sew them together with 1 centimeter seam allowance. And this is finally the last step. You have to insert that seam allowance at the waistline. And now you're finally done with the dress. And guys, please keep in mind that this is a time-consuming project, so you need to have patience and time to be able to finish it. Otherwise, I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. So thank you for watching, and if you're interested in this type of videos, then please subscribe.